agricultural production, aquacultural production, or commercial fishing, for donations that they make to a food bank, food kitchen, or other tax-exempt organization that provides food to low-income individuals without charging a fee for the food or requiring any other type of compensation. The credit is equal to 10% of the wholesale market price of the donated products, up to a maximum of $500,000. Maine Revenue Services in its testimony did indicate that they had some technical concerns and questions that might need some clarification. The administrative cost estimate, $33,000 in the next fiscal year, the computer programming to set it up on their system. And they did not provide a revenue loss at the public hearing.
All right. So I know the sponsor is with us, Representative Roberts. And Representative Roberts, do you have any additional information to provide, that any amendment that might address concerns the department had or anything like that you'd like to offer to us?
I do not at this time. I'm not sure what clarification. I'm open to any amendments that they feel would provide the clarification needed. What that language would look like, I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, I we had some discussion this morning about this bill, and there was some issue raised about it maybe being a double benefit of some sort, or that there was already some sort of deduction, allowed for this, and this would allow a credit on top of the deduction. I didn't know if you had any response to that.
What the feedback that I got from sitting on ACF last session, from the farmers was that for them, any type of tax credit, as farmers providing donations, was really convoluted and nobody really used it. So this would provide a direct path for them. I try to see if Representative Pluker would be available, because he's a lot more familiar with the process, but couldn't get him on. But that was the basic kind of premise around this, is that for the agriculture, and fishing industries, it's not as cut and dry for them as it is for individuals or businesses.
Right. Yeah, because and I guess there's a report being done that we could wait to see what the results are, to see how the current deduction's working, and if it is working or not, and what we could do to maybe make it work better, which I know I'd be interested in doing. I think it's a great cause, and what you're trying to address here is very important. Is there any committee discussion, questions, comments? Not seeing everybody on the screen here. Yes, go ahead, Representative Carmichael.
Yeah, do we have somebody from Maine Revenue Services available that we can get a clarification on this, and maybe a suggestion on how we could maybe work this without a duplicate deduction?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Is there someone here from the department that could join us?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and promote the department folks now.
Looks like Dr. Allen, looks like you're with us now. Are you available to discuss LD 262?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, it was having a little trouble. We have the crew on. What's the question that you're asking at this point? Is
Well,
there a
there-
way of,
Yeah, there was some concern about, there's already a deduction allowed for this type of thing, and this would allow for a credit as well. And Representative Carmichael, suggested that maybe have the department address that issue if it is duplicative, or if it's, sort of the concerns around that, if it sort of would provide like a double benefit, or what we could do with this bill to maybe build on what's already happening around this.
what? Well, to avoid the double benefit, what you'd have to do is have the taxpayer add back to their main adjusted gross income any deductions that they took on their federal return. They may have itemized a charitable contribution, or if it's a business, they may have taken a deduction for a charitable contribution. So you'd have them add that back to their main AGI, or main taxable income, and then you would allow them the credit. That would offset the double benefit, but that adds complexity to the tax return. And I think we've been trying to recommend as simplification as much as possible. So it's an issue that it provides a double benefit.
Mhm.
Obviously, it's up to the committee on whether you think, providing a double benefit is a bad thing or a good thing.
Yeah.
But to try to remove the double benefit does create complexity to the tax return, additional lines and complications for the taxpayer.
Yeah, we just heard from the sponsor that the current deduction isn't, she heard that it isn't being used very much. Is that your understanding? It's not used that much?
It's somebody can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's a charitable contribution, then it should be like any other charitable contribution and be allowed to be taken at the federal level as such. So I haven't heard of that, but we're not aware of every
Sorry, Dr.
issue.
Allen. Yeah. No, thank you. Representative Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this bill came out of the looking at the federal food donation tax credit, and under that currently, farmers are not included in that. So I'm not sure where the double benefit would be.
Can someone from the department address that?
Good morning.
Welcome. Welcome to that.
Good morning. I don't know that there's an exclusion to farmers. I have not seen that. I know what you're speaking of, and I have a copy of Pub 526 here, the referencing to the federal code. And it does seem like this federal provision was being referenced when this bill was written, because in the federal requirements, the food is to be used for the care of the ill, the needy, or infants. The foods related to the organization's exempt purpose or function. Organization doesn't transfer the food for money, property, or services. You'll receive a written statement from the organization stating will comply with these requirements, which look to be coming also into this bill directly. So I do think it's duplicative, but I don't know that there's any limitations to farmers. I've not seen that. One of the testimonies online mentioned other states have similar programs. I poked at a few just to look quickly, and they are, some are still in existence, some have been sunsetted, and some I think up to $800 for married filing jointly, but it did not, even those programs didn't seem to exclude farmers. So I'm not familiar with, I won't say for sure, but I'm not familiar with this excluding farmers.
What, as the sponsor, Representative Roberts, would you think it would be beneficial to have a little bit of time to maybe work with the department and work out some of the, concerns around the bill and work with Representative Pluker maybe to come up with an amendment that would make the bill maybe work a little bit better.
Yes, I'd be open to that. Absolutely.
It seems like there's some things maybe that need to be worked out. Maybe some other committee members have some questions. Representative Sachs.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Representative Roberts. And in that, if the intent is to help encourage donations and make it easier, one thing I'd be really interested is to know, even if that is available to farmers, it sounded like the issue was that it wasn't given whatever the requirements are, it wasn't something easily accessible, which is why you put this in to say, well, the deduction is not accessible, the credit would be because of X. That would be really helpful. And also thinking about the intent of your bill, I would just say from my own view, while I appreciated the testimony of the Maine Grocers Association, that would not be an addition that I would be comfortable adding to because of the intent of your bill. And I didn't know how you felt about that.
Representative Sachs, I understand your concerns. And that was, one of the recommendations to the current federal credit was to expand to, low volume producers. They said like farms, or it could include grocers. I had that in the original draft of the bill and then decided to take it out and focus on agriculture and fishing. So that provides clarification there. It was there, and then I took it out to narrow it down.
Great. Thank you very much for that.
Any other questions or concerns or discussions from members of the committee? You still have your hand up, Representative Sachs. Do you have anything else, or you? What's that? Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any other hands up. But would someone like to make a tabling motion to give Representative Roberts some more time to work on this bill with Representative Pluker and the grocers and the department? Representative Carmichael?
Yeah, and make a motion that we table it at this time.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Representative Carmichael to table this bill, seconded by Representative Matlack. All those in favor, please signify. Raising your hand. Using the reactions button. Can't see everybody. So it looks like all the members that are here are in support of tabling. You have everybody down, Avery?
I do, yes.
Okay, looks to be unanimous. So that bill is tabled. Thank you for being here, Representative Roberts. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we'll now go into work session on the LD 1D1. You can scroll us up on the chart, Julie, or down. I'm not sure. I think it's further up.
Yes, you said 201, right?
191.
191. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to do three things at once here, so sometimes miss a little bit. There's 191.
Yeah, we just took 262 first, and then we want to go back to the
Okay.
order that are listed. 191 was an act to permit municipalities to provide assistance to veterans and paying property taxes. Senator Bailey's bill.
Yes. This bill would provide that, well, under the veterans exemption, the generic, it depends on various categories. There are some small categories that receive a different amount, but the major veterans exemption is property tax exemption is $6,000 in reduction of the value of the property that's being subject to the property tax. However, it is $6,000 just value of the property tax. In fact, I was trying to put together an example to add to the chart to show you on the screen, but I didn't. It was getting complicated, so I didn't manage to get it on the screen for you in time for this morning's meeting. But say, for instance, you had a municipality which values its property at 100% of just value, and the property is equal to $100,000. The next municipality over, their valuation was not at 100% of just value. Let's say it's 90%. So the taxable value of the same house in that municipality would be $90,000 rather than $100,000. What happens is, with regard to the $6,000 exemption, in the first town, because they're at 100%, they would get the value of their house, 100,000 minus $6,000. So that would get them down to 9,400 as taxable value. In the town next to them, which values their property at 90%, I don't think towns usually have the intent of doing something other than 100%, but the valuations or their assessments don't happen every single year, and sometimes they grow out of value. Property value increases, so something that was worth $90,000 in 2010 may now be worth $100,000. So when we look at the valuation, because the valuation of the house is at $90,000, 90% of just value, we reduce the exemption by 90%. So their exemption becomes $5,400. It actually kind of all works out in the end, because when you apply the mill rates to the exemption, the percentage of the reduction in value that the veteran will get the benefit of is the same in each of those municipalities, because it's being determined on the basis of just value rather than figures which may not be fairly comparable. What this bill does, though, a lot of veterans, when they look at that situation, if they're in the town where their exemption is being reduced from $6,000, it seems like they're losing a benefit. And they are, to a certain extent, because it's not $6,000, but the ultimate bottom line impact on their taxes will end up being the same percentage amount. So what this bill does is to say that in instances where a town is not at 100%, that the veteran would be entitled to a benefit which was equal to the difference between the reduction in valuation of the property in the 100% town versus the 90% town, the difference in the taxes on that valuation. So it's what the benefit would be is the difference in the amount of taxes between the 100% town and the 90% town. In this instance, the taxes, say at 20 mills on a $100,000 house, would be $2,000. If you, the taxes on a $90,000 house at 20 mills would be $1,800. So the difference between the 2,000 and the 1,800 is $200. So am I doing that right? Yes. So the benefit would be based on the tax difference between that $200. And it at 20 mills, you know, I'm saying something a little wrong, I think, because I had calculated it to be about $12 difference would end up being the benefit for the veteran under this calculation. The benefit for renters is a flat amount. The bill would also be available for renters.
Okay, great.
The sponsor has indicated that the benefit is she would like the benefit to not be taxable under income tax. That would be similar to treatment of other types of property tax benefits that municipalities have the ability to adopt. This would have to be adopted by an ordinance by the municipality. So it would be similar to treatment of those other types of benefits, that they would not be considered income for property tax purposes.
Right, so this is an opt-in, right, Julie, for the municipalities to opt into doing this?
This is optional, yes. They would have to adopt it by ordinance.
Yeah, okay. We have a couple questions, Representative Bickford, followed by Representative Carey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Julie, my question is, I'm listening to your explanation, and if a home at 100% value is valued at 100,000, and at 90% it's at 90,000. The mill rate for the home at 100,000 might be $20. The mill rate for the home at 90,000, because it's 90%, is not going to be $20. It's going to be probably 21 or 22. When towns, municipalities do their mill rates, the lower the percentage of value, the higher the mill rate. So I'll give you an example. Auburn a number of years ago went to 100% valuation, and the mill rate dropped significantly because all the homes went to 100%. So they all went to a higher value. And so that made it hard for me to follow what you were saying, is why there would be a difference. If someone gets a $25,000 homestead exemption, it's $25,000, regardless of whether the municipality is at 80% or 90% or 100%. Am I correct?
I'm sorry, I was trying to calculate where you said your last sentence. Could you repeat your last sentence again? I apologize.
Yeah, so when someone gets a homestead exemption of 20,000 or 25,000, whether the municipality is at 65 or 80 or 100%, doesn't matter. They get the full $25,000 taken off the value.
No, the homestead exemption is also adjusted for the percentage of just value.
Okay, I've never seen that on my tax bill, so that explains it. Thank you.
Representative Perry, followed by Representative Carmichael.
So I was going to say the policy as is exactly right if they're to adjust it, but now Representative Bickford has me rethinking that. That's going to take me a while. But my question, I guess, really is, this is an opt-in. So does that mean the state is not reimbursing the difference here, that it'd just be a local program?
That's right. This is not a change in the property tax. This is a payment that essentially a benefit that would be provided to the property owner, to the veteran, by the municipality. This is an income tax credit.
My feeling is,
no, it's not an income tax credit. It's a benefit that would be provided by the municipality.
I guess my feeling is if they want to do it, then go for it.
Representative Carmichael.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I had the same concern about, passing the responsibility for the difference in the taxes on to other taxpayers, but where this is an opt-in and, they can choose to do this as a benefit to their local veterans. And, I definitely don't see anything wrong with that.
All right. Any additional committee discussion? Representative Bickford, you still have your hand up. Are you all set? Okay. I'm not seeing any other committee discussion. Someone would like to make a motion on this bill? I believe Senator Bailey's with us as well. Maybe we should ask if she has anything additional to provide to us since she is joining us. Do you have anything additional to provide to us, Senator Bailey?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I don't. I would emphasize what others have already pointed out. This is totally optional on behalf of the municipality. So, it's going to be a decision for municipalities to make one way or another. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Allen, would you like to chime in?
I just wanted to point out, as we mentioned in our testimony, that obviously veterans, like all other Maine residents, are eligible for the property tax fairness credit. And so to the extent that maybe people feel like they're not getting the full benefit of their veterans exemption, if they are overburdened by the property tax, then the property tax fairness credit would allow them, both homeowners and renters, to get additional relief.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. Any additional committee discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Let's go ahead, Senator Pouliot.
So I think the opt-in nature of this is definitely attractive. I think one of the concerns I have, and I actually talked to my sister about this just this past weekend. She's an Army lieutenant and actively serving. And I just, I have concerns about us picking the veterans population over Mainers across the board. I feel like if we're going to pass this, which I would be supportive of doing, it should be for all Mainers, not just those of a particular population who may have served at some point in the past. So I would be open to that as an amendment. Otherwise, I'd probably vote against the bill just because I feel like it's picking winners and losers, and I don't think that we ought to be doing that with our tax policy.
Senator Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just point out, and again, I'm familiar with this because we do this in Saco. There are other programs similar to this for all taxpayers. We have the optional work-off program so that people can get reductions in their property taxes by volunteering in the community. So there are already similar programs to this, and I think that's why Saco City Mayor came up with this idea, because we've been so successful in Saco with the property tax volunteer work-off program. And so this is similar, the difference being that, of course, instead of currently volunteering, the veteran has already done their service, so that we didn't feel they had to do anything currently.
Thank you for that, Senator Bailey. Well, seeing no other committee discussion, someone like to make a motion? Representative Hanley?
Yes, I have to agree with Senator Pouliot that you're actually going to set up a program of wealthy communities being able to grant something, and other communities that are struggling will not be able to offer the same benefit. You're going to have a poor versus rich situation, which there's no way to treat veterans. So I think all or none is probably the only thing I could support.
Well, I do think it makes sense to provide additional assistance to people that have served our country, optional for the town. So I support the bill the way it is. But, other committee discussion. Representative Perry. We have, sorry, Peter Lacey. Do you want to chime in?
I just, if possible, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to raise a quick technical concern that we had picked up on, just for the committee's consideration. The bill is drafted, references homestead and references to the terminated circuit breaker program. And so if the committee is considering moving forward with this bill, we would just recommend that that definition of homestead refer instead to the homestead exemption law. So we can send Julie the sites, but I just wanted to at least point that out for the committee.
Yeah, that's important. Thank you for doing that, Representative Perry.
Thank you. So after thinking about this some more, I think that Representative Bickford raised some questions in my head. I do think that the math works out right with the current system, but being a local program, I guess I'm not particularly concerned. But my audio broke up just as Senator Pouliot raised his concern, what he'd like to see different. And so I'm not sure what we're talking about. I was wondering if someone could tell me what that was.
Yeah, if you could just repeat that, Senator Pouliot.
Sure, yeah, just my only real concern really is just kind of picking winners and losers as opposed to us just having this available to all folks in Maine. I think from an equity standpoint, I'd prefer that this be available to anyone, whether they're veteran or not. But beyond that, after I spoke, Representative Hanley brought up a good point, which is that if there are communities that have more robust property tax base, they may be able to offer this to people, perhaps even as an incentive to live in their community, whereas other communities might not be able to do that. I guess it's an equivalency of kind of like the charter school discussion, thinking someone's going to move from one area to another, and then you end up losing kind of some of that base. So although property tax, I guess the home, if they move, is still taxed, you know, for property tax purposes, it doesn't go away completely. But I just kind of feel like it pits the stronger towns against the weaker towns, perhaps, with this kind of a setup, because it is, you know, voluntary, and the town would have to backfill locally, so those with more resources would be able to do it.
Perry?
Yeah, well, that brings me back to Portland. What, 10, 15 years ago, attempted a local homestead or a local circuit breaker type program. And so it almost sounds like if there was something that wanted to be available for everyone or every community, that might already exist. Did that ever pan out in Portland? It seemed like there's some legal problems.
Well, what they had done is tried to essentially have the different tax rates for homeowners versus commercial property. In a nutshell, it was struck down, but we now have a new program in place that does provide property tax relief. It's sort of a rebate program for residents that are, I believe, 65 and older, that can get additional relief through a rebate that they apply for from the city. So that's what we have in place now, and that seems to be, you know, just got implemented, I guess, a year ago. But but that's it's for everybody, but it's only people that are 65 and older. It's not whether they're veteran or not. It's for all residents 65 and older. Representative Kreisler?
Yeah, just a question. If this goes through, then the towns are going to have to decide whether they want to do this or not. They already have the availability of doing that now. If they decide they want to have a tax program for veterans in the town, they can write an ordinance and have that done. I'm just curious why we need to have a bill, have it a law at the state level.
Well, the only thing they can do now is, I think, like a rebate. They can give money back. I don't think they can just lower the taxes, you know, have a lower bill that goes out to people that are veterans, but it's a rebate that they would be able to do. So they'd pay the taxes and then get the money back later, I guess. So.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Julie.
I noticed Representative Kryzak also has hand up before I did, but I just wanted to mention, if you are headed towards wanting to expand the people to which benefits might be provided, a great deal of thought would have to go into that. It may be that the current law which authorizes the Portland program may also be sufficient to permit other municipalities to do something similar. But the way this is written, it is based specifically on the difference related to the veterans exemption. If you wanted to expand it to other people, it would have to be totally re-envisioned in terms of how a benefit would be calculated, because this calculation is based upon the amount of the veterans exemption. Just wanted to mention that in terms of your discussions, if you were headed in that direction.
Representative Perry.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry to keep talking on this, but it seems like we're kind of going around circles. So I mean, just my math says if there's $100,000 house in a town with a mill rate of 20, their taxes would be $2,000. If they have the $6,000 exemption, that'd be $1,880. If it's only assessed at $90,000, the mill rate would be up 10% to 22. It'd be the same $1,880 in the end. So I think what we're doing is exactly right. That it may appear different when people see their amount reduced, but I think it is fairly being applied throughout the state as is, that we have it right. Now, if this is a local option that the state's not picking up the tab on and people want to do it and the committee wants to go along with it, I'll go along with it. But I don't think there's a problem other than the perception of what a individual homeowner sees.
Okay. Representative Hanley?
Yes. Is there any provision, is there any, is it allowed for any community to grant a rebate or exemption to any veteran in their town right now? What prevents a town from doing that?
Julie, you have a response to that, you know?
Well, it depends upon what you're talking about. The Constitution provides that property taxes has to be assessed equally. And according to just value, that has been interpreted by the law court to mean that local option property tax exemptions or rebates would be considered inappropriate. That is in fact the case that Representative Perry was referring to 10 or 15 years ago now, where Portland tried to adopt its own property tax exemption, essentially, or I think it was a rebate program. But the law court considered that that was an unequal application of property taxes in the city of Portland. So what happened was the statutes were changed in order to permit, I have to go look at that portion of the statute right now because I'm not recalling it specifically enough, but municipality, it may not even be in statute. It may be just that municipalities can provide benefits. And if a municipality wants to assist members of its community with their expenses, they can provide a program that does that. But when it comes to the point of changing their property taxes, then it looks to the law court like a property tax exemption and therefore in violation of the Constitution. So if you wanted to do something based on property taxes, you'd have to be awfully careful about how you came up with it so that it wasn't going to be considered a property tax exemption. But in general, there certainly is nothing that I'm aware of anyway that would prohibit a municipality from just deciding, for instance, it wanted to send a $100 check every year to veterans or low-income people, or however it wants to categorize people in its municipality. It's one of the reasons why bills like this one and other programs, the volunteer provision that Senator Bailey was referring to that some towns have adopted as well, also provide benefits to renters. It's kind of a way of saying we're not just assisting property taxpayers, so this is not a property tax benefit. This is a benefit for low-income people or for older people or for veterans, I suppose, as long as it's not related to their property tax. If you're including renters, they don't pay property tax directly anyway. It's the property owner's obligation, obviously. But so you have to be careful about how you devise it, but that's a long-winded answer to your question, I guess.
Representative Carmichael.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just, so this as it's written, does it have constitutional issues and fairness issues with other people? I mean, other applications?
Is it me? It raises an issue. I think it can be argued because this benefit is available to all veterans in the municipality, not just those who own property, that it can be argued that this is not a property tax exemption, which would provide for unequal treatment and potentially violate the Constitution. On the other hand, a court could look at it and say, well, no, wait a minute, for veterans, it is an exemption, and therefore we don't think that the legislature can adopt this. I would say it's not entirely clear. I think arguments could be made either way. I'm not sure what a court would do with them.
Right. Representative Sachs.
Thank you.
Thank you. And honestly, I had put up my hand a while ago when Senator Bailey was here. I was just going to ask her what prohibited SACO from just extending credit for time served for her program for the veterans rather than creating a whole new bill. That was my question.
So Julie, the current program in SACO, is that like a rebate program? Do you know how that works? What they do there?
It is a benefit program. Say if a resident of the town, I don't know their program actually. I'm speaking to what the state law allows, so I'm not sure how their program is crafted. But the state law permits municipalities to provide a benefit to members of their community who volunteer service towards the municipality. I don't remember exactly how it's calculated, but there is in statute a calculation of what the benefit, how it's crafted, and I think it depends upon the number of hours of volunteer service that they've put in. And I think there's a maximum cap on it. Because this statute was sort of backed into because their original intent was to provide a reduction in property taxes. And since that really can't be done constitutionally, the benefit is available regardless of whether the volunteer owns property in the municipality or not. I do not know how the town is doing it. I can just only guess that perhaps if the volunteer does pay property taxes in the town, that perhaps they just subtract it from their property tax bill when they send it out and say, you've got this credit for this other benefit, but it's a credit for another benefit that will be available to the volunteer, whether they are a homeowner or not. So I don't know. I mean, they look like a rebate to the homeowner or a reduction in their property taxes because it may be subtracted from the amount that they owe the municipality for the property tax bill or other things they might owe the municipality. I don't know how they do with like water or sewer there, but I don't know enough about how the local program works to be able to answer that specifically.
Representative Matlock?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to this bill, there currently is a law that exempts $6,000 of a veteran's property taxes. And this is just adding just value as a consideration to equalize it where equalization may or may not be necessary. So I'm not sure that this bill does any more, provides an additional benefit to veterans at this point, and a benefit already exists in law.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it does any harm to pass this bill. I hear what you're saying, Representative Matlock, but I do want to support veterans, and I think if it can do some good, I'm fine with that. Any additional committee discussion? I guess I'd make a motion that we pass the bill with the changes mentioned by Peter Lacy to the language so that it reflects the changes that he mentioned in Homestead. Would anybody like to second the motion? Representative Carmichael?
I second it.
Any further committee discussion? Can't see everybody on the screen, but I don't think anybody has their hand up. So all those in favor, please signify. Let us know when you have everything you need, Avery.
Almost there. Sorry, the screens keep moving around.
Okay.
Okay, I think I have everyone. I'm just going to read it off to make sure. I have Senator Chipman, Senator Libby, Senator Pouliot, Representative Collings, Representative Matlack, Representative Perry, Representative Sachs, Representative Kryzak, Representative Bickford, Representative Hanley, and Representative Carmichael for a unanimous ought to pass as amended vote.
I don't think it did. Senator Pouliot, did you vote for it?
Yeah, I'm not going to mess up with a unanimous report. So,
okay. So it is
go
unanimous.
forth and conquer.
And I think
All
I
right,
have
so
Representative
Let's
Terry.
give tax breaks to everybody though.
All right, so that, I guess that is
Okay.
unanimous then. Great. Do you have something, Senator Libby? Is your hand still up? Just from the vote? Okay.
No, just for the vote. Sorry about that.
Okay. Great. So that concludes the work session on LD 191. We'll now go into work session on LD 201, an act to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and promote weatherization in the buildings sector by extending the sunset date for the historic property rehabilitation tax credit.
Yes, this is Senator Libby's bill. And it provides that an extension of the date for certification of property to be eligible for the income tax credit for historic rehabilitation. Currently, the law provides that a period of time, it says buildings that are certified between X date and the ending date is 12/31/2025. The bill would extend that to 12/31/2040, so for another 15 years, to extend buildings that were certified, for projects that were certified either by the Federal National Park Service, which does that at the federal level, or by the Maine Historic Preservation people. A technical amendment was identified, I think, by Maine, or I'm not sure who identified it at the public hearing, that there is a provision in law in Title 30A regarding the Maine State Housing Authority, requiring them to review and report on the percentage of affordable housing, because there is a ramp up in the credit if the project is creating affordable housing. So the statutes related to this direct the Housing Authority to review and report annually on the degree of affordability, the percentage of affordability in the projects. And that also has a date that specifies that the report is due through 2025. And it was recommended that if you're going to extend the date of the credit, you also ought to extend the date of the report from the Housing Authority. There were a large amount of materials that were presented to you, that were sent to you in response to questions that were asked at the public hearing. I emailed those to you last night, and they have been posted on the website under LD 2001 as well.
All right. Thank you for that, Julie. Senator Libby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Julie, for your summary. As the sponsor of the bill, the feedback I received from the public hearing from committee members was general support. However, I think there are different opinions on whether to support the bill as drafted, support removing a sunset altogether, which I think was the preference of some Republican members, and then some Democratic members suggesting a shorter extension to allow for the OPEGA tax expenditure review process to run its course over the next 12 months. As a reminder, anytime we do a OPEGA review at the GOC level, we send that report to tax. Tax has the ability to report out legislation to make amendments to any particular tax credit that we've reviewed. And so, I can sort of see both arguments. Obviously we'd love to get rid of the sunset altogether, but at the same time, accountability is important. And so I think some Democrats are interested in maybe doing a 5-year extension, and assuming that the OPEGA review comes back favorable, which by all indications of the economic analysis that was done by some of the supporters, that I think the analysis will come back showing this is a credit that's working. So I think my ultimate goal is to see if the committees can come together on this bill, if we can get a unanimous report. If through discussion today we may need some additional time to try to get to unanimous report, I'm open to that as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Senator Libby. Representative Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I hate, I hate constantly talking about the old days and, you know, whatever, but I was on the committee when we initially passed this. And there were a couple of specific projects, the Hathaway Mill in Waterville, and then a historic building across the river in Augusta. I'm not that familiar with. I'm not sure that ever got done. And we put a sunset to try and measure how it's working. And then almost immediately we were confronted with, it's either Biddeford or Sauk, where there's one owner, several buildings, and now the claim that each building is a separate project. And so now the maximum was 5 or 6 times what we thought it was. I'm thinking, oh brother, here we go. But from what I heard in this public hearing is that this has been a really successful program that is green. It's returning money to the state. I've had these lingering questions from 15 years ago, whenever it was done, because I asked the developer, one of the things that bothered me was that it was a tax credit that the developer really couldn't use, and he had to sell it off for less than 100 cents on the dollar. And so I'd asked this developer, would it be better for the developer if instead of giving a tax credit, we actually gave money, a loan, and maybe could do a larger percentage that wouldn't have any payback for, say, 20 years. So you're getting all the money up front, you may be getting more, and then it starts a revolving program. And his answer was some of the more sophisticated states are doing that. Not my thought was, well, why aren't we one of the more sophisticated states? But hearing the response last week that a nonprofit, a great nonprofit here in Maine is one of the outfits that is buying a lot of these tax credits, and it's reduced to say 85% because it would take 3 years to get the money in the first place. I think my views have changed somewhat, that maybe the system we have is okay. So that was some of the questions I'd hope to get answered through OPEGA, and hoping the OPEGA report would say we ought to just remove the sunset. So at any rate, with all that said, I feel like the public hearing allayed a lot of my, alleviated a lot of my concerns, and I'll certainly be voting for whatever we can find agreement on to move forward with.
Thank you, Representative Perry. Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with getting rid of the sunset altogether if we had a report that showed that it worked really well. Without having that information, I mean, I've heard from some people this works really well. I've heard from other people it doesn't really, you know, these projects would have happened anyway in some cases. So I'd like to see the report, but we don't have that. So I'm just feel a little bit uncomfortable extending something out to 2040 as the bill calls for without the report that we're going to have in 12 months. So, you know, I think the most I'd really want to support would be 5 years, you know, to get us to 2030, you know, without having the report. We could wait for the report and table the bill, but we've been tabling other bills, and we probably shouldn't keep tabling bills. So I don't know. Is there anybody who would be opposed to 5 years for now till we get the report back? Senator Pouliot?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that's certainly a step in the right direction. One thing that I would say, just from a development perspective, is that some of these projects take a long time to put together. They're very complex in nature, and also there's always a constant moving target in terms of the cost of doing these projects. So the but-for has become more pronounced as time goes on with labor and shortages and cost of materials. So, you know, I think what might work well is, you know, if we were to do if there seems to only be consensus around a shorter time frame of, say, 5 years, I think that does give some stability to the development community that this is worth pursuing the project now, because there's going to be some time horizon there. Where we would run into a little bit of an issue is some of the complex projects are phased over a 5-year period of time. So if you have a project that's going to take 2 years from now to get into pre-development work done and get all the numbers and financing done. So now we're into 2023, and then you're doing another 6 months for financing. It's almost touching on 2024. And then you're like, oh shoot, is this going to get, you know, extended or not? Because my 5-year phase of the project is hitting up against that 2030 mark. So it seems crazy to think about that these things take that long, but we're talking about some of these real big mill developments where these are utilized a lot, particularly like in Biddeford, Lewiston and such. that could be a concern.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Senator Pruitt. What I'm proposing is 5 years beyond the current law takes us to 2025 if we don't do anything. And so the bill is calling for going for 2025 to 2040. And what I'm proposing is going from 2025 to 2030. You know, so we have time to get the OPEGA report and decide if we want to take it off altogether. So what I'd be proposing as an amendment to the bill would be to extend it to 2030. So that's 9 years from now. So I think that's a good time frame for any projects that would be getting off the ground in the next couple of years, and we'd certainly, you know, be able to take action, you know, well before that, you know, maybe in the next year or 2 years from now.
Yeah, that sounds good. Would you be interested in amending that slightly to say that, to go as far to say that if the OPEGA, the third-party objective OPEGA report demonstrates, you know, favorable outcomes of this project such that it should be continued, that we would then agree to remove the sunset?
Senator Libby, or sorry, Senator Representative Carey had her hand up first, but.
That's okay. I actually be interested in hearing Senator Libby's thoughts on that. And I was just gonna, first of all, ask Senator Pouliot exactly what he was just talking about in the development business. And I know I see around here in my area, which is constantly under development, that 10 years seems to be the right mark. So if this takes us up to 2030, I'm comfortable with that. But I think I like the idea of being able to pull out the sunset if there's a favorable OPEGA report. I don't know what that looks like though on a legislative session to legislative session step though. You know, every legislature has the opportunity to move things around. So, you know, do we want to bind the next legislature to do something?
Yeah.
I'm struggling with that in my head. So, but I would definitely like to hear what Senator Libby has to say about Senator Pouliot's proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we could put a trigger in, and I don't think I'd want to add that to the amendment. I'd like to see the report because everybody's going to have a different opinion about the report, depending on what it says. But go ahead, Senator Libby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Pouliot, for the suggestion. The last couple of nights I've been trying to wrestle with how we could craft statute in such a way that we could define a favorable report back from OPEGA and have that trigger of removing the sunset. And I am challenged to try to figure out how we would put that criteria into statute. And so in lieu of that, what I was thinking is, you know, the report back from OPEGA, last I checked with the staff would, you know, I think we can get that report done this year, this calendar year, very close to it. Have the report presented to the committee, do the public hearing, and then OPEGA, and then GOC reports back to tax early in the next session. So I'd be very happy to have you sponsor the bill to remove the sunset, you know, at the right time next year, and I'll co-sponsor it if we can all agree that, you know, this is the path we want to take, and this is how we could sort of chart a course to getting the sunset removed, assuming all these other pieces come together. Curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure, I think that makes sense. I definitely don't want, you know, to get in the way of us making progress on this. And I think that any extension of that sunset that's in there is good work. Perhaps we could put some language in that say that we have the authority to report out a bill next session. Perhaps we could just utilize this already existing legislative vehicle, you know, to do that. My little thing that I have on my desk says, there's no limit to what a man can do or what he can accomplish if he doesn't mind who gets the credit. So happy to give you the credit, Senator Libby. Just want to see this move forward because I know how much of a game changer it is for our state.
Sorry.
Yeah, just a question. If the OPEGA report's going to come out in the next session, why don't we just table this bill to the next session, and then we can get rid of the sunset clause then, instead of extending.
That would be a bad idea because the development community that would be a bad idea because the development community that is working through financial projections right now then would be left on ice for a year, essentially.
Yeah.
Under
Yeah,
a federal legislature.
Excuse me, even though they still have 4 years left on the sunset now? Okay, so they need a longer term, so we should, okay, I understand now, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now some of them are concerned and, you know, that it expires in 2025 if we don't do anything. So if we wait another year, you know, it's another year of uncertainty for them, and they need at least, you know, 5 years in some cases or more to plan these things. But
the smaller projects, Senator, that like the one that I did was a very small potatoes project. It was like $2 million. Some of these are, you know, $20 million plus projects, and they're phased over 5 years. So to Representative Kryzak's question, that's just where, and you understand that, but that's the reason why that 5-year horizon, which seems like forever from now, is really very front and center for those that are starting some of these big projects.
yeah, so what I'm proposing would be to take us to 2030. Like right now, we'd say we're going to go to 2030, and then we'd have some language suggestions that we would allow the committee to report out a bill, you know, next year once we get the OPEGA report back. Representative Matlock.
Thank you, sir. I'm a great proponent of this. I've seen it in action here in the Mid-Coast area, and I think it's a great benefit to our community. So if Senator Pouliot is comfortable with only extending the deadline out to 2030, then I'm comfortable with that also.
Representative Kryzak, do you have something else? Is your hand still up from before? Okay.
Nope.
Okay. Representative Carmichael?
Yeah, if we're ready, I'd like to make a motion that we pass this, send this through, ought to pass as amended.
With the
2030. The
2030
sunset.
And do you want to include in there that our committee can report out a bill next year in response to the OPEGA report?
Absolutely.
I second that, Senator.
Senator Chipman,
Go ahead, Senator Libby.
Representative Carmichael, your motion also includes the language regarding Maine Housing's reporting, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
So Representative Matlock, do you have something additional? No? Okay. So we have a motion by Representative Carmichael, seconded by Representative Sachs to extend the credit from the current expiration of 2025 to 2030. And the other part mentioned by Senator Libby, as well as the committee's ability to report out a bill next year in response to the OPEGA report. Any further committee discussion? Julie, go ahead.
I'm not discussing, but I just mentioned that with regard to the tax expenditure review laws, which result in the OPEGA report, the statute already provides the taxation committee with authority to report out legislation relating to a report. If you certainly no reason why you can't include something separately if you want to, but assuming they do submit a report to you in January, you would have authority to submit legislation under current law. Just wanted to mention that.
Maybe we don't need that, Senator Libby. I'm sorry, Senator Pouliot.
The only thing I would say is that just adding it in here is good for the folks that aren't familiar or have the luxury of Ms. Jones, the analyst, giving them that insight. They would know clearly through the legislation that provision was in there, and it could be having discussions throughout this year, working toward that potentially happening next session.
Yeah, so there's no harm in having it in, so everybody's fine with keeping that in. Looks like we are. Okay, great. Seeing no further committee discussion, all those in favor?
While Avery's counting, can I clarify who the second was on the motion?
That's Representative Sachs.
Thank you.
That appears to be unanimous.
Okay, yeah, I think I have everyone. I'm just gonna read it off to make sure I have everybody. I have Senator Chipman, Senator Libby, Senator Pouliot, Representative Terry, Representative Collings, Representative Perry, Representative Sachs, Representative Kryzak, Representative Bickford, Representative Hanley, and Representative Carmichael. Do I have Representative Matlack? Yes, okay,
Yeah, yes, I did vote yes.
okay.
Great. So that's unanimous. We'll now end the work session on LD 201. And we'll go into work session on our final bill today, LD 241. You can bring the chart.
Back up here.
Great.
Excuse me. LD 241 is Senator Curry's bill, an act to support the trades through a tax credit for apprenticeship programs. This is very similar to a bill that you had last year, which I believe died on the appropriations table. It provides an income tax credit of up to $2,500 and for employers who employ an apprentice participating in a program registered with the Maine Apprenticeship Program administered by the Maine Department of Labor. The $2,500 credit would be based upon assuming the apprentice was working 40 hours a week for a full year. The credit would be prorated if, for instance, the apprentice was only working half time, then they would receive half of the credit during the year. It would begin with tax years in 2022, and Maine Revenue Services had some technical concerns and was looking for some clarification in some of the provisions in the bill. Their administrative costs are $33,000, the typical computer programming cost, and a estimated revenue loss of $1.5 million per year.
Okay. Senator Pouliot? Your hand's up. Okay. Great. Any committee discussion? And Julie, you mentioned the department had some concerns. Should we maybe hear from them now, or? So we've got hands up from Representative Sachs and then Representative Carmichael. Go ahead, Representative Sachs.
I just wondered if the sponsor is here, Mr. Chair.
Senator Curry, I don't believe is here. I don't see him unless he's in the waiting room. Do you see in the waiting room, Avery?
He's not on.
Not on. Okay.
Let Representative Roberts know that his bill was up because I know that they were meeting this morning. I don't have his number, unfortunately.
I did just message his aide.
Okay.
Go ahead, Representative Carmichael.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I see in the report from the Maine Revenue, from Dr. Allen, that they estimated to reduce in revenue by $1.5 million. I think this would be a temporary reduction because actually we would be gaining trained people, skilled people, and applying them to our workforce. So in the end, I think we'd end up gaining revenues and be an investment in theirs and the state's future. This is my feeling. I would like to hear what they have to say in clarifying this.
So you want to hear from the department, Representative Carmichael?
Yes, if we could, that would be great.
Okay, great. Is someone from the department with us that could clarify some of the concerns that they raised? Sorry, I can't.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. We had a few small concerns. One's the typical wording that we'd like to have the wording of the bill in our typical for tax years beginning on or after January 1st. That's pretty easy. We would like to know if there's any caps. Some employers have many many apprentices and did not know if there was any cap as to how many or how many dollars this credit would be capped at. So it's about up to $2,500 per apprentice. According to the Maine Apprenticeship Program 2019 annual report from Maine Department of Labor, who sponsors this program since 1941, they list some employers who have over 100 apprentices, and there's even reference to an employer with over 1,000 apprentices. So we were just wondering if there were any limits, caps, and also, again, this is another case of a credit that perhaps what we could do is perhaps an allocation to the Maine Department of Labor, the Maine Apprenticeship Program there. It has become very popular, and in their 2019 annual report, they have mentioned how popular that they used to give a credit up to about $1,200 per, but now with so many employers, with so many apprentices, it has dropped down to say about $500 per apprentice for reimbursement for these expenses. So that's just another avenue that this sort of benefit could be taken. The other thing is there's some way of reading, you could possibly have an apprentice working for an employer who works for a subcontractor. We just want to make sure that the hours are counted once per apprentice. Those are our big questions.
So I see Senator Curry is here, even though he's on the screen as me. It's okay, he's here. Senator Curry, would you like to provide any additional information to the committee?
Thank you very much, and I apologize for the delay in getting in here. Finding the right link is often the major challenge. So I appreciate you inviting me in, and for the clerk and helping me get reset. So I'm not sure what questions you've already addressed or what concerns. I do know one of the questions from the public hearing was the total number of apprentices. If you've covered that, then great. But as of the 2019 report, and I'm looking through, in Maine, we had a total of 2,813. 1,104 of those went through the Department of Labor's program. The others go through are directly go through the Federal Department of Labor, and that they're associated with Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. So I wanted to make sure I answered that question. Also to address kind of the larger kind of impetus behind all this is really to make sure that we are supporting all of our youth and people doing career changes. We have strong scholarship supports through those pursuing college in the community colleges and the university system through the Maine State Grant. And this is a way to support and to really grow the apprenticeship programs and to grow to a level that meets our long-term economic development needs. So I will be happy to answer questions, but I feel like you've probably gone through some of this already. But yeah, be happy to answer any questions.
Julie, could you just maybe summarize for Senator Curry the concerns that the department just raised so he can maybe address some of those? You're on mute, Julie, sorry.
Off of the screen.
There we go.
I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Maine Revenue Services, I hope I capture this accurately, raised questions about whether there was intended to be or ought to be a cap on the number of employees that an employer would be able to have to qualify for this. Whether if they had 100 employees that were apprentices, whether they'd all be able to qualify or there should be a cap, or the amount of money that a cap on the credit in terms of a maximum amount that an employer would be able to receive. They also indicated that they thought it might be better to provide benefits to the employer through the apprenticeship program rather than doing it by virtue of a tax credit. And they wanted to be clear that with regard to situations where there was an employer who was using a subcontractor, whether to make sure whether the hours were not counted by both the employer and the subcontractor in terms of being eligible to claim a credit. I think that's it. There was a technical issue about the tax year being on or after rather than just beginning in 2022. So I think that that's what Ms. Popadak was outlining for you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the summary, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for asking for that to help me out. I would agree with I'll start with the last one. I would agree with the analysis. We want to make sure, because there are intermediary organizations, and we want to make sure it's clear as to who is receiving that benefit, the tax credit benefit. I thought I did think pretty closely about the issue of, can a company that has a lot of apprentices, can they, is there a cap? You could say over a certain number, and that's the most that they can receive. I'm hesitant on that. It's certainly something this committee can wrestle with, and I see you doing that. I'm trying to increase apprenticeships, and so if single companies can increase apprenticeships, great. If we can have a lot of smaller organizations increase apprenticeships, great. But my goal is ultimately that we're increasing apprenticeships and we're finding more pathways for a variety of folks that have pathways to get to sustainable jobs. And I think the numbers that the apprenticeships programs currently show are pretty strong. They go from, I think on average, $17 an hour at the start to over $21 at the end of it. So I'd like to see more of those programs. I'm not sure a cap per organization propels us in that direction. I can certainly understand, the Revenue Service saying, well, how do we not have this be an open-ended, and do we have to have a limit on that? And I would put that to this committee if you feel we need to have a limit on that. I just see that we have a strong need for increasing the total number of apprentices. We have, compared to our university and our community college system, both private and public, the number of apprentices that are currently engaged at under $3,000 is pretty small.
Thank you for that, Senator Curry. We have questions from Representative Sachs, followed by Representative Carmichael and Representative Terry. Go ahead, Representative Sachs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome back, Senator. Thank you for being here. So we received a report late this morning regarding the Maine apprenticeship program. So thank you. I don't know if that was your doing, but that answered the question of the number of participants. But I did notice that the number of apprenticeships rose 166% between 2017 and 2019. So, and one of my questions to you during the public hearing had been, what is it we're hoping to spur? 166% seems pretty healthy growth, and it's on the right track. So I guess I'm asking you again, where there's some technical problems that I do have with this, both for partial, reimbursing for partial, the amount of the credit, and do we want to consider going back to a supplement per apprentice that we used to have? It was reduced to $500 in 2019. Do we want to consider just going back to the $1,200 per apprentice? So these are the questions I'm wrestling with, sir, and trying to maximize the efficiency of what you want to do for a program that is already expanding exponentially from any other program I've seen so far. Thanks.
I think one of thank you very much, for Representative Sachs. I think one of the challenges with the percentages is that we're talking pretty low numbers in when we look at education. I think, the numbers that I saw were those working with the department went from 767 to 1,104. And so that's great if that trend were to continue. I don't know if we could anticipate that trend continuing. For a target, I would love to see us get up to 5,000. So, I would, and ultimately, I think we need to look workforce. And I will tell you, that is a little bit of a random number. I think the question that we need to ask is for our workforce needs, how many apprenticeships really, what are we looking for apprenticeship programs to do, and how many are really needed? And at the end of that report, they referenced their trip to the apprenticeship program trip to Germany, where the model is about 30% are engaging right out of high school in apprenticeship programs. We're not Germany, but it speaks to another model of people going from K-12 education into the workforce in a pathway that gets to a sustainable income and a sustainable career.
Representative Carmichael?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator. I'm still not quite clear on what this program will do that the main apprenticeship program isn't currently doing. Is it expand it in a way? Can you clarify that for me?
Sure. It is seeking to, my goal is to incentivize businesses to engage more fully in the apprenticeship program. I want stronger partners in business to promote education and promote career development within their ranks. So one of the things, I'm an academic advisor with the university system, and one of the things, the real challenges I see is, especially when I work with a lot of adults, and the challenge to go from the thing they're doing now to the career with the degree is that how do you get that training and still live and still, get your rent paid and your food on the table. And one of the exciting things about apprenticeships, and we do that and students are working at it, but it's hard. It is big work, especially for adults who are engaging in career training, career development, and having to go after where the pathway is a bachelor's degree or an associate's degree. And so one of the exciting things about apprenticeships is they're paid during this time. And so, and they're by having to be part of this federal, the federal apprenticeship program, they have to be paid well, and then also have to have a significant increase at the end of their apprenticeship. So it is a way to marry work and career development and education together that I think is quite conducive to those who are doing career changes. And I just see, as I look at our economy, we're going to have increasing changes in economy. People that were well set up for a job that no longer exists. And we're going to be in this cycle of people having to get retrained. And I'd love to have more of that training happen within the work environment so that our businesses are strong partners in promoting education through, and I see this apprenticeship program as a way to facilitate that. The other population I think is really well served is those who are graduating from high school or graduating from the CTE program, and they're ready to get on to work and going right into an apprenticeship program rather than the university or the community college system, I think is also another model where apprenticeships can be very effective in getting people into their careers with good paying jobs. So I'm trying to get more apprenticeships out there is really my goal.
Great, thank you.
Representative Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a very inexpensive education for a lot of people doing something like this, for sure. My question is actually either for Julie or Ms. Papaduck about using this credit in addition to other employee credits. I want to make sure that if this passes, that even though they're apprentices, they're also employees. So I want to make sure that they're not getting a double, that the companies aren't getting a double benefit from these particular employees, contract or otherwise, however we decide to work the language on that part. So could one of you guys assure me that that's either in the language or something that we need to add?
I'm going to have to defer to Ms. Popadak. No, I'm glad you spoke up first, Heather. Yes, go ahead, Heather.
My apologies. I'm glad you brought that up because I was just thinking, do we need language? Does the committee wish to have language if there's a benefit from the Maine Department of Labor apprenticeship program, and the employer also gets a tax credit? Do we need to have a provision in there to offset the Maine tax credit by the amount granted by the Department of Labor? Or is it the committee's wish that if this were adopted, that you would allow both credits to happen? So we would need some clarification there. I have not, as to the broader spectrum of different credits, I absolutely did not think about that. I don't know how the ETIF benefits might be double, but I don't know. It's just not enough research. I did not look at that aspect, so I don't wish to speak on that. That's a different economic program. So I'm not really prepared to speak about other credits, but I'm glad you brought it up because I was kind of wondering on this particular bill, whether there would be an offset for anything granted from the DOL or not.
Follow up.
Just the clarification.
Yeah. Follow up, please.
Yes, go ahead.
For Senator Curry, had that come across your thought process? And if not, are you comfortable with putting in the language that this is, that this can't be coupled with another work credit, employee credit for employers?
Thank you for the question. I had not run into that, and I had not thought about that, and so I think it's a fair question as to what would be. Is that a incentive that would really help move the ball forward on apprenticeships, or would it not? Does it make it more cost effective not to do it? And I think that's, I'm open to both of those options. As I would be, if the price tag scares folks, if the 2,500 is not a number that we can support, the committee can support, getting to a number that you could support. I think it is likewise a question of we're talking about what are the constraints on this right now. You're considering the constraints, and I think I would be open to all of that.
Okay, I think I'm comfortable with the 2,500 for sure. However, I can think of one place in particular who is actively going out and looking for apprentices that has an enormous workforce that is also getting employee credits for just bringing people in. So I think I'm comfortable with it as is, but adding the language that it can be used as a singular deduction for an employer versus it being added to another credit that they get. I think that I love apprenticeship programs. I think they should start at the school level and move into the private and public sector level. That being said, I think we still need to be able to pay our bills, of course. So giving too much away could be harmful. So if you're comfortable with it, then I'm comfortable with making sure whatever language Ms. Popadak thinks that we need to put into that, I think would work.
Is that fine with you, Senator Curry? You're nodding your head yes.
That's fine with it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes.
Would you like to make a motion on that, Terry?
Maybe I'll wait till Representative Sack has.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was also interested in Ms. Popadak's questions about caps. And is there a cap on the available credit, or is it per employee? So those who have 100 employees, is there a cap that we're concerned about? And also Senator Curry talking about, was there a reason for the partial credit that was there? You said there was I hadn't followed up from that question as well.
Yeah, if you could address that, Senator Curry. I know that's one thing some others were wondering about, the partial credit for what's allowed and what the reason is for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great question. And the reasoning for that is that these apprenticeships don't follow a fiscal year. And so if someone starts in August, they would have gotten a certain amount of hours in. And so it's a way to credit that, because they wouldn't be through that 2,000 hours yet. So all of the apprenticeships are 2,000 hours. They're just not going to land on the same tax year.
So even though, sir, that there's a certain percentage, as was in the report, there's a certain percentage, 380, for example, who canceled their apprenticeships. Do they still qualify for the credit if a certain threshold was met, or only if they brought somebody in?
I would argue that they would still be eligible for that portion because they're engaged in the process in the same way, a scholarship program for a student, that quits their classes at the midterm, at the in between semesters. We would still have that scholarship. They're still engaged in the process of apprenticeship. It didn't succeed, but they're making the expenditure. So I would argue that the proportionality, even for those who quit, would still be worthwhile. But that is certainly your call.
Yeah, I'm just balancing many of the technical aspects of the bill. And then to go back to my question about the caps, I don't know where you fall on that, Senator.
The caps per company?
For Ms. Papadoc, can you explain in a little more detail some of the concerns you have with that particular language? It could be per company, it could be per, I'm not sure if there was a threshold, it could be the max given to each company per employee. So I wanted to suss that out with MRS.
Right, just wondering if the committee would like to set any caps, and so however many dollars probably would be the easiest, where, like it was mentioned, these kids come in partway through the year, so the employer would have the number of hours, would have to do the proration, the next year prorate again. So probably the dollars rather than the positions or the individuals. And frankly, this is going to be a bit of a burdensome paperwork situation for the employer. And so that's why we wanted to still keep maybe perhaps an appropriation to DOL they already keep track of the records as far as the employer, the number of hours, et cetera. It might be easier on the employers to have DOL get the appropriation for this program. But if not, yeah, it would be a cap. Probably dollar amount would be the easiest thing for us to administer. Per cap.
Right. So Senator Curry, did you find in your discussions about this bill that it would incentivize employers more to have this credit as opposed to reinstating the per position stipend through the MAP program that had been abated in 2019? Thinking of simplicity and saying, if we're trying to help employers and trying to encourage more apprentices coming through, would the same aims be done by recommending that stipend be returned either to the 1,200 or the 1,000 marker as opposed to the $500 per apprentice. And that would be used to help spur and offset the costs of an apprentice, which is what you're trying to do with the tax credit.
Mhm. It's a good question. I don't have a clear answer on that. I think that there's a side to the tax credits that are naturally more attractive to businesses, so it gets them thinking in that direction. The stipends are tied directly to the education and training portion of the apprenticeship, the 144 hours to education and training, and so those are sometimes go right over to if they're contracting with an organization. If they're doing it in-house, then it covers their in-house training. But if it is over at the if it's partnered with a university, then they're really not quite seeing that. And so I'm not sure that would be a particular incentive for especially apprenticeships in new areas. For that reason, I was leaning more on the tax credit than the appropriations for Department of Labor.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Carmichael?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a business person, I think I myself, I would see it more advantageous to have the tax break than the other. I think it's easier to take advantage of and to help the people with. So, from this side of things, I think the direction he's gone down is cleaner for this, for business. Just my thought.
Additional discussion from the committee? Questions for Senator Curry? Go ahead, Representative Terry.
Again, for Ms. Papaduck, when it comes to, is there paperwork? Well, not paperwork. Are there parts of the tax returns that would, I mean, obviously we'll have to add something for this onto tax returns, but is there something already in place on a corporate tax return that shows what type of employees there are, or would this need to go through labor or the Department of Labor, that is, in order to really make sure that it is the apprentice hours that are being tallied in this, not necessarily, someone who's just having a regular training session type of a thing.
Right. It would be cleaner, certainly, to go through the Department of Labor. They have those records. It's their program. It would be less administrative work for the employers. There would be clarity as to who the employer is and who gets the credit. One of the problems is if there are two entities claiming the apprentice hours, because of confidentiality, we cannot tell one employer, oh, this other employer already claimed those hours. We can make an adjustment, but we really can't give further information. And so that puts us in a pickle. And you mentioned earlier, I believe it was you, Representative Terry, mentioned about other credits, other employer credits, or maybe it was Representative Sachs. So the major headquarter law, the major shipbuilding law, the major food processing law, these might be areas where there are additional benefits for these sort of positions. But I haven't delved into it too deeply to tell you exactly what those, I know there are benefits as far as the employers receiving these credits, but.
Yeah, that was exactly what was going through my head too. Okay. So I'm just trying to I'm trying to work out doing this on my own tax form, how how I differentiate between an employee and an apprentice and somebody who's just training. So I'm just going to work that in a little bit further. Sorry.
Representative Matlock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question was, the MRS has put a price tag of $1,500,000 on this. Is that based on a number of apprenticeships? So that would indicate how many apprenticeships would be available? Or is this their best guess estimate of how many employers would be availing themselves of this credit? Or are we talking about putting a dollar cap or a numbers cap, or even how many apprenticeships per business there might be available?
Looks like Dr. Allen was.
Dr. Allen, yeah.
So I think Representative Matlack, we had used the estimate that was attached to the bill from last year, and I don't have the details with me on exactly how we developed that estimate last year, but we can get that for you.
Representative Carmichael.
Yeah, this just a suggestion, and I'm not even sure if it's possible, but what if we put a cap on the percentage of the employee numbers that can be apprenticed? Like if you have 100 employees, you're allowed 10 apprentices. It's just, or you could have it at 20%. You're allowed 20. And I think that would be reasonable, because to have an apprentice, you got to have somebody working with them. And, if you got 50 full-time employees and 100 apprentices, then they're not really getting what we want out of the program.
Representative Hanley.
Yes, having been an apprentice myself, I benefited from these programs as a welder and a pipe fitter and instrumentation specialist. So they work, and we're arguing about $1 million. And when I think of the amount of millions we put into the University of Maine system, this is peanuts. And you're going to need a lot of skilled employees in the future. And these apprenticeship programs truly work. So I hope we can find a way to make this work, whether it's a tax break or a direct payment, whatever it takes to, Representative Carmichael's point about the easiest way to understand that a businessman can use it. Also, as an apprentice, there was always a ratio of apprentices to journeymen. It was usually no more than 2 or 3 apprentices compared to 10 journeymen. So you never get overwhelmed with apprentices. That's not how it works. But I'm in favor of this type of promotion because of personal experience. Thanks.
Go ahead, Representative Terry.
Thank you very much. And Representative Hanley, I agree with you 100%. I don't think that having a cap on it is necessarily a great idea, seeing the desperation most folks have with just being able to call a plumber or an electrician. I think we can, if there's interest in putting any kind of cap on it, I would suggest a sunset, but I don't think I'm even interested in that, quite honestly. My concern now is just making sure that this goes into law properly, so we can make sure that it's being taken advantage of by the way it's supposed to be taken advantage of, and no other way. So I'm not a big fan of throwing a dollar amount on this, quite frankly. I think it's the private public partnership that this state is very good at in the higher education field, and even K through 12. I think that we can certainly be part of the solution on getting folks to be able to get an electrician in their house much faster than we are right now. So I just want to make sure that we do this, that we get all of these, all of this language in appropriately, and so the right folks can take advantage of it.
Senator Pouliot?
Senator Curry's got a great bill before his committee that will be reconsidered to help with getting more electricians into people's homes. So hopefully that'll pass unanimously. But I support this initiative. I think it's a common sense approach to helping us help people increase their skills and further support the Maine workforce.
Thank you for that. Representative Hanley?
Yes, if we need to table this to iron out some, wrinkles in it, I'm all for doing that. I think that would be a fine idea. Senator Curry has got some ideas that he can add.
Yeah, what are folks thinking about that? I mean, we've already tabled another bill today, but we need more time. I mean, I support the bill. We have deadlines to meet with bills, but do you think we need more time, Representative Terry, or do you think we could move forward today?
I think, if this is our last bill of the day, it's only 11:11, and we can work with MRS to get some language written. I think we can get it done today. I don't think I'm not in favor of tabling it, but if the committee is, that's completely fine. I think we can get some work done today, though.
Representative Hanley?
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to table it. I just thought there were a lot of questions and we might as well try to get it right. So yeah, let's finish it. I think Representative Carmichael had a real a decent suggestion about how it would work best for an employer, but maybe we could add that language.
Julie, is that doable?
I have to look back at my notes to find out what Representative Carmichael's suggestion was. I'm not sure. Perhaps Representative Carmichael could remind us. Or Representative Hanley.
I believe you, Representative Carmichael suggested direct payment. Was that it?
No, actually, I was in favor of the tax break. I thought it was cleaner for the businesses and easier to deal with that way.
Okay, I misunderstood you, but yeah, I mean, if that can be something that can be effectively used, I'm all for it.
So would that be, when you say a tax break, Representative Carmichael, you mean a credit or a deduction? Or?
Yeah, I'm sorry, a tax credit, yes.
Credit, okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a tax credit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Representative Terry, go ahead.
So we can continue this conversation, but I think maybe I might have some, I think that this might work. If we are to, I would like to make a motion then ought to pass as amended. And the amendment being using Representative Carmichael's idea and asking that Senator Curry, Representative Carmichael, and Julie get some language pulled together that works with input from MRS, addressing the concerns that we've spoken about early, that we spoke about earlier with, Julie's already got her hand up. So addressing the issues of double benefits and making it a tax credit versus going through the Department of Labor, and having Senator Curry, Julie, and MRS and Representative Carmichael pulling together proper language. That was a really long motion. I apologize.
Julie, go ahead.
I may have missed something along the way in the discussion, but I mean, I understand the issue of the potential impact of a double benefit, but I think there may be a lot of judgment that would have to go into what constitutes a double benefit. I know the credits that were mentioned by Ms. Popadak have provisions in them that require the employer hire a certain number of new employees in order to be eligible, but how that becomes a double benefit is not entirely clear to me. I mean, some of the other issues that were raised by Maine Revenue Services, I think would, before I could draft anything, and I imagine before Maine Revenue Services could help with that process, that we would need to know what changes specifically you want to make to the bill, rather than identifying the problem and asking us to come up with what the solution is.
If I just might add one little thing to the those other credits within the ones that we spoke of earlier, all of them, if I'm not mistaken, have in there the caveat that the benefit goes to a qualified employee. And perhaps there's something in the language that we can tweak that makes the apprentice not necessarily the qualified employee for those other credits. Does that make sense? Maybe Ms. Popadak may be able to answer that, or Dr. Allen.
Is Ms. Popadak or Dr. Allen available?
Oops. I was seeing if Dr. Allen would talk first.
Sorry, I don't want to throw you under the bus like that. I apologize, but
Yeah.
but if I remember correctly, that there is a part on all of those that has a qualified employee is being able to take advantage of those credits. So perhaps an apprentice is not considered a qualified employee.
So as far as the major shipbuilding, the major headquarters and the food processing, I'm not sure if apprentices are included in that or not. I just don't know. And that wasn't really the credits were the double benefit. That's like an additional credit. It could be additional benefits. But what we were referencing is, okay, so the employer, because these credits are only for the employers, the employer hires the apprentice and it has a wage and salary expense, and has the Maine Department of Labor Maine Apprenticeship Program. If there's credits that, although that amount decreased because the allocation that they had to cover more apprentices who became part of the program. And then this credit, the LD 241 credit, if this comes into being, it was the two credits for the employers that are part of the apprenticeship program that we were talking about, a double benefit. We weren't even considering the salary and wage expense that the employer would also get as part of the benefit. I'm not sure that answered your question. Nope. Sorry, I'm sorry. What was?
I'm just thinking along the lines of getting the language in there that only allows for a benefit for the apprentice, or only allows one benefit for the apprentice. That somehow or another we pull, maybe it goes back to the language of what a qualified employee is, and to make sure that it says somewhere in that language that an apprentice is not considered a qualified employee.
I see. So you're trying to focus.
I'm trying to pull them out of the employee field when it comes time to filing your taxes for this kind of thing. You know, when it comes time to getting credits for employee programs. I'm not saying that right.
Yeah, I'm not sure the other credits have limitations. So if the apprentice is on the payroll during that time frame, I think they're considered an employee. And this is where we figure it'd be a lot simpler just to take an allocation over to DOL, so they can give a bigger per employer credit, per apprentice credit to the employers. That would be the easiest way to not make a tax credit out of it, but rather an allocation, and then the employers get the larger amount from that program because now they have additional funds. The amount shrunk not because there was anything other than financial constraints. The money went further when there were more apprentices in the program.
Is there a tax implication for that money that they get per employee? You know, is that part of their capital? Yeah. So I think that's why I don't want to put words in Representative Carmichael's mouth, but as an employer, it would be easier knowing that the credit was just a straight credit versus an addition to my income from the DOL that I would have to pay taxes on.
We could look into that. We could find out if what you're saying is that allocation per apprentice to the employer, that credit from Department of Labor, is that a taxable money? Is that something? Yeah. Okay. I will have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
Unless anybody else from Maine Revenue would like to chime in.
Okay.
Do you have something, Julie?
No, I've forgotten what it was. I'm sorry.
Your hand was up, I didn't know.
Yeah, I should take it down.
Yeah, I wonder if perhaps I should strike my motion and wait for Ms. Papadoc to get us that information. If that's amenable to everybody. I apologize. Trying to get it done today, but it sounds like there might be an easier alternative.
So Representative Terry, you're suggesting we maybe need more time for Ms. Papadoc to work with Senator Curry and getting the amendment together for us?
Not even so much working with Senator Curry, but getting that information. I mean, I agree with Representative Carmichael that as an employer, it's cleaner to get a tax credit for this particular type of employee. I totally see how it's a challenge for MRS to get that, to figure that out. So if the Department of Labor piece works, and we can take the cap off of it or whatever we want to do with it, I'm fine with that, but I just want to make sure that the allocation from Department of Labor to companies is not taxable. If it's taxable, then it sort of defeats the purpose. You know, if it's just a cash payment that they get in lieu of, you know, sending these kids to college or whatever, or even adults going back into the workforce, then that's a different story altogether. So again, I see that the credit is more beneficial for businesses, but if it's something that's so incredibly complicated for MRS to do and for the companies to do, then that makes a difference, and maybe it is smarter to go back to DOL. So that being said, Ms. Papadoc, can you get that information for us for soon?
Ms. Papadoc with us?
She's probably trying to get the information.
My apologies. I got another call. I'm sorry. What could you repeat that, please?
If you could find out, please, if the allocations from this program now, if it's taxable income to the businesses to get this reimbursement for the apprenticeship program.
So the monies that the employers receive from Department of Labor Maine Apprenticeship Program, are those taxable to the employer? Yes, we'll work on that. Yes.
Thank you.
Senator Curry, do you have something you wanted to add?
Thank you. This has been a robust conversation. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one thing I would add is, as I think about what was been described as multiple tax benefits, the concern around that. It strikes me that this credit proposal I put forward is really to fund to help support a specific and incentivize a specific thing, which is the education and apprenticeship model. And the other tax benefits are designed for bringing on employees and having employees. They really do feel like they're different things. And so I can think about those differently. We're trying to incentivize and promote using the tax code. Or what I'm proposing is this type of engagement, not any employee, but an apprenticeship experience, a hands-on learning coupled with intensive training. And so that was the only thing I was going to add as I think about whether those two tax benefits are appropriate together. They seem to be funding different things to me or supporting different things.
All right, additional committee discussion. So go ahead, Representative Terry.
Did I officially withdraw my motion, Julie?
Oh, I don't know. That's up to the chairs to decide.
Yeah, you said you wanted to strike it, so.
There was no second.
Yeah, it was. Okay, thank you. So then I make motion to table this until we get information back from MRS.
All right, so we have a motion to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Representative Carmichael. Motion made by Representative Terry. That's non-debatable. It's the tabling motion. So I guess all those in favor, please signify. Let us know when you have everything, Avery.
Yeah, I have Senator Chipman, Senator Pouliot, Representative Terry, Representative Collings, Representative Matlack, Representative Perry, Representative Socks, Representative Kryzak, Representative Hanley, and Representative Carmichael. I don't think I'm missing anyone.
So that appears to be unanimous. So that is unanimous. That concludes our work session on LD 241 and concludes our work for today. Is there anything you have for us, Julie, we should know about?
No.
Okay. You have anything, Representative Terry, we should announce or anything like that? Are we all set?
I think we're all set. Yeah, I think that's it.
Your hands up, Representative Pouliot. Do you have anything? No.
Representative Hanley, was that a wave or do you have a question? Oh, wait.
Wait, okay. Representative Perry?
Just double check, session on, or committee on Monday and Friday next week?
Yeah, we should just reiterate that for folks. So just so that we wouldn't lose any progress that we're making in the committee in light of the session that's been scheduled for Tuesday and which could go late into the night, I guess. We've decided to move our work sessions that were scheduled for Tuesday to Monday at 9 o'clock. So we'll be meeting Monday at 9 o'clock for work session on the bills that had been scheduled for Tuesday. We will then not meet again as a committee till Thursday at 9 o'clock for the regularly scheduled work sessions that day. And then on Friday, we'll be having public hearing on several bills that had been previously scheduled for Wednesday. Those will be heard Friday at 9 o'clock. So there's an updated calendar everybody should have received from Julie. But that's our schedule for next week as a committee is Monday, Thursday, and Friday, all 3 days at 9 o'clock. Representative Hanley, you got something?
Yes, I will be in environmental on Monday.
Okay. Representative Carmichael?
Yeah, I have a commitment. I'm presenting a bill Monday at 10, but I can be there, and make sure we have quorum and then I'll just have to step out for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm getting concerned about quorum. I'd ask everyone if you possibly can be there at the beginning of these meetings. That would be great, so we can start our work, even if you have other places that you need to go. And I think for work sessions, we actually have to have quorum for votes. We need to have 7 members for any voting. So if you can be with us on the work session days, that's critical. And then on the public hearings on Friday, at least at the beginning, so we can start, that would be important so we can actually hold those public hearings. All right, well, I guess that's everything for today. So we'll officially conclude the meeting of the Taxation Committee and we'll see you